baby. Oh, baby. Better watch out for all that skill. So yeah, like I was saying, don't let it bother you. Don't let it keep you up at night. Don't let it hurt your work's productivity. Don't try to understand it all at once. Just sit there, let it percolate. Let it percolate. Just all that skill that just happened, just let it sit. Let it be. And in time, it'll sink in. You will, in a sense, meld with all that skill. You will come to an understanding of all this skill that's happening right now, and even a deeper understanding of the human condition, really, when we're being serious. A deeper understanding of what it is to even be human will come to you in time, but don't force it, okay? Don't force it. I'm worried about your well-being. Alright, so all of that fucking ridiculous bullshit, me laying it on super thick, all of that aside, oh good, attacking me from behind is the challenge. So back to what I was saying, and that super move, this fucking pathetic fucking excuse for a fucking super move, this boss fight right here, this is an extreme example. This is the utmost of an example of what I'm talking about. So this is not typical, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff in the game that are very similar to this, that are taken from the same page, that are in the same book, along the same lines. There's a whole bunch of other shit that the game does that is very, very similar. Might not be as egregious as this, but it exists, and it's the same kind of horse shit. Like I said, challenge necessitates the use of skill. You can't go to work for 10 hours a fucking day putting stamps on envelopes and be like, oh man, that job is so boring that it's a challenge. No, it's not a challenge. It's not a challenge because it doesn't take any skill. It takes fucking no ability or capability at all. It takes fucking nothing to do, so it's not a challenge. This fight right here, I am a firm believer that whenever you do a challenge run, obviously this challenge run is not how the game's intended to be played, and that is a valid point. That is something that does need to be taken into consideration. It's a good point. You don't, like, it's not like whenever they were designing this that they were like, oh man, but what if someone like actually actively refuses to use the leveling system that you put in the game? What if that happens? How about that? What if that's the deal? We better design this so that somebody that's actively avoiding mechanics and systems in the game doesn't go on this fucking rant of it. No, that's obviously not the case. However, I personally believe that doing a challenge run often can, doesn't always, but very much can, accentuate a game's successes and failures. It can highlight where a game is great and well-designed, and it can also exaggerate a game's failures. And I believe that's the case with this BL4. And the way that you can test it is by comparing this fight in a normal run to a BL4 run. So, in a normal run, the only excuse is that there's only two ways to even possibly lose this fight. Only two ways to die. One of them is you get attack chained by enemies because you are not even trying to avoid getting ganged up on. You're standing in really bad positions and getting hit by multiple enemies back to back to back to back. I mean, you're going to have to get hit by a bunch of them. Even though they do arbitrarily large amounts of damage, you're going to have to be completely negligent in your own safety in order to get killed by these guys. Or the only other way that you can die is it's literally the first time that you've seen their ultra move, their super move with the meteors, and you have absolutely no idea what to expect. That's the only possible way that you can lose on a normal run. If you... Shit. No! No! Ah! Okay. Now, if you have seen... If you're experienced with the game, there's no excuse. None. Zero. There's no possible way that you can lose this fight. And that is basically what I'm getting at. There is no challenge. There's no challenge in this fight. If I don't even consider this to be a boss. If you fight this boss, quote-unquote boss, and you lose on a normal run, I can't even fathom. I can't even fathom how you would lose on a normal run because you have to beat Ludwig to get here. And if you can beat Ludwig, even in a battle of attrition, there's no possible fucking way you're gonna lose to these guys. They take no skill. As you can see, just in this video, obviously, you saw everything that the fucking enemy can do, everything that this boss can do, you saw in the first minute and a half. You saw almost immediately everything this boss can do, an incredibly limited skill set, except for their super move. And you saw how much fucking skill it takes to dodge their super move. So, the thing is that the Bloodborne apologists, they want to say, oh, it's not hand-holding, but here's the problem. So you know it's not a challenge. It's not a challenge because if you look at it, if you compare it to BL4, the only challenge in this fight is that they do arbitrarily large amounts of damage, and you can still get one shot by being attacked from behind, because obviously it's the DLC and they have to increase the amount of damage that the boss does in the DLC, because you're supposed to be tackling it at the very least, getting close to the end of the game, right? Like you're getting close to beating the game, so you're going to tackle the DLC after that, right? So the enemy has to do arbitrarily large amount of damage, otherwise it's a complete pushover. As it turns out, in a normal run, it's still a complete pushover. And the only danger in a BL4 run is the fact that your brain might fucking cave in and turn into like a brain black hole just from how boring it fucking is, because it takes no fucking skill. The fact that you can be one shot from behind because you're fighting 4 guys at the same time. It's arbitrary difficulty. Again, it's not difficult and it's not a challenge if it takes no skill. If it takes no skill, cannot. You do not have the option, I don't care who you are, you cannot consider it a challenge if it takes no skill. So that point is moot. And the other point is, they love to say, no hand-holding. No hand-holding in this game. You're responsible for your own actions, no hand-holding. But here's the problem with that, is that denying the player something that the player deserves, and I'm not talking about like being an entitled little shit, you should give me infinite healing, blah, 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 because when you really think about it, this game is actually pretty lax on the player. This game isn't that harsh on the player. You have infinite lives, and the only thing that you lose when you die is time. You lose time in the form of having to do whatever you didn't accomplish over again from scratch, and you lose time in the form of blood echoes, which blood echoes, your currency in the game, just equates to time, and you even have the opportunity to go and get your blood echoes back, saving you some of that time. So when you really think about the way that the game is designed, it's not that bad. It's not like you lose anything for failure. Oh god, here's the chance for some damage. 3 of them back to back. You can hit them all at the same time. I love it. You can only hit them once before they pop out of it though, and there's too much danger. The reason that it's taking me so long, I can be much more aggressive in this fight, but I don't have the saw cleaver, so it's difficult to put out actual good damage. And honestly, I'm going to be honest with you, the more time that you spend focusing on one enemy, the much higher chance you have of getting one shot from behind. That is the reason that I'm taking this super slowly. That is the reason that this is excruciatingly long. Also, I fell in love with the idea of going on a, oh fuck. I accidentally killed a guy before they did their super move, so this guy is not caught in the animation of the super move, which means I have to stand in this location and not get one shot by the guy or get knocked into the super move. That's just luck on the game's part. That's just me being unlucky and killing a guy when the rest of them go into super move animation. Anyway, so again, they like to say no hand-holding. They like to use that for fucking everything, okay? Now here's the reason that doesn't work, is because if you deny the player something that the player is foundationally needs in order to be successful, if you're denying the player something that just in common sense the player deserves to fucking have, then you're not making it challenge. It's not the opposite of, it's not hand-holding to give your player something that your player deserves. Like, it's not hand-holding to give your player a modicum of understanding of how the fucking systems in your game work. It's not hand-holding to tell your player what in the game is a beast and what in the game is a kin, because it's not obvious. It's not obvious what in the game is a beast and what in the game is a kin. It's not hand-holding to tell your player how your weapon and stat system fucking functions. This is not fucking hand-holding. And the opposite, where it is hand-holding, that's bad too. That's bad design too, don't get me wrong. Capcom is like, oh man, there's this eagle-shaped hole in the door that's locked, and you just picked up an eagle crest. I wonder how you could possibly fucking open this door with the eagle hole in it, and you just picked up the eagle-shaped crest. I wonder how you get in that door. Oh man, there is an extreme on the other side of the same coin. I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm not saying that Bloodborne is the only offender in this case either, because it's not. A game that I love, Mega Man 9, it's a brilliant game. It's so brilliant that it makes Mega Man 10, which is a decent game, look pretty mediocre in comparison. I mean, I'm just being honest. And Mega Man 10 is not a bad game, but it looks pretty not impressive in comparison to Mega Man 9, and yet Mega Man 9 has some really bad fake difficulty. There's fake difficulty in fucking every game. You know? Every game is like this. There's a balance between knowledge and skill. And every challenge in every game is a combination of both. It requires both. It requires knowledge and it requires skill. There's tons of games that are known for being difficult, where knowledge is incredibly valuable, where even knowledge is more valuable than skill, right? That's definitely the case. The problem is, in Bloodborne, not just Bloodborne, other games too, but the problem is in Bloodborne, skill is so vastly less important than knowledge, okay? And that is shown in this boss's super move, where skill is not a factor, a zero factor in this boss's super move. But knowledge is literally motherfucking everything. Knowing where to stand makes this move not happen. Having the knowledge of where to be, something you cannot possibly know beforehand, something that is not even fathomable for you to figure out on the fly or for you to know beforehand, literally renders this move non-existent. Again, this is not an exaggeration. This is the ultimate of examples of where this game fails. This is the utmost and the pinnacle, the #1 example of how this game is a failure sometimes, but it drives the point home. Skill is not necessary, but knowledge is fucking everything. Everything. If you had the opportunity to play Bloodborne, and here were your choices. You can have reflexes of a cat. You can have fantastic decision-making skills. You can do the right thing at the right time, fucking constantly. Like you never, ever make a poor decision, and your timing is impeccable. Absolutely impeccable. Those are your two options. Or that's your one option. And the other option that you face is instead you have bad reflexes and bad decision-making skills, or at least mediocre or worse, not great. You have normal skills, and yet you have all the knowledge. You know all of the attacks of the bosses inside and out. You know where all the insta-kill traps are. You know where to fucking stand in the arena to make the super move not happen. There is no choice. There's no choice. There's no argument. Bloodborne is so much more about knowledge than it is about skill. It does require both, because just because you know what the boss does doesn't mean you are going to be able to perform the actions in enough time, have the decision making, have the positioning in the arena, and have the reflexes to actually pull it off. But in terms of weighing value in this game, skill... Sorry guys, it ran over 2 videos, I'm sorry, just because of my rant. What I was saying is skill is absolutely no substitute for knowledge. It's not even close. It's not even in the same realm. It's not even in the same argument. You can't even put the two side by side and decide between them. In Bloodborne, knowing what will fuck you is far more important than being able to avoid what will fuck you. Because the game doesn't give you enough leeway, doesn't give you enough leash, enough rope to work with to avoid being fucked. In Bloodborne, in most games, the default state is up in the air. The default state is you might succeed and you might fail. It's expected that you might succeed and you might fail. The challenge is when you come up against the boss that you figure out on the fly quickly enough how the boss functions and what you need to be doing strategically to beat the boss in enough time to not run out of resources and life in order to fail. That's the challenge. The challenge is, the state, the outcome is up in the air. Are you going to succeed or are you going to fail? That is not the case in Bloodborne. That is not how Bloodborne's structured, and it's not how Bloodborne is designed. In Souls games, the default state is failure. The default state, the expected outcome, all the time, is you died. That's the default state. And the task that is put before you is to figure out how not to fuck up so consistently that you overcome the default state and you somehow succeed. Okay? You're not supposed to play well or figure out how to play well enough on the fly to win. You're supposed to throw enough time and enough devotion to learning everything and memorizing everything. You're supposed to gather enough knowledge about what's going to happen that you even have a chance to make skill a factor, to make reaction time and decision making even a factor. You have to become familiar enough with how you're going to get fucked so that you can even have a chance at not getting fucked. Okay? That is the default state of Bloodborne. And it's a shame because it's not hand-holding to give the player something that the player needs in order to even have a chance. It's not hand-holding to not put fucking insta-kill traps in places where you can't possibly avoid them, but as soon as you know they're there, you never get killed by them again. It's not hand-holding not to put that absolute fucking horseshit of design in a game. It's not a challenge to put insta-kill traps in a game that instantly make you start over and make you face frustration and possibly lose time that you've put into a game, possibly lose your currency, your echoes, arbitrarily just because you didn't know that the insta-kill trap was there, and then once you gather that knowledge, it might as well not even exist. That's not a challenge. That's bad design. That is bad game design. And the reason that I go on these rants, the reason that I try to bring light to this, is because you have so many people defending this game and acting like it's perfect. This game does a lot of stuff magnificently. The game is fun to play. Overcoming the challenges are admittedly great and fun. Playing this game on a BL4 run is just, it's so fun in certain ways. But you can't put blinders onto the bad design and ignore them. You can't wave your hands and say, oh, this shitty aspect of the game that's absolute fucking garbage water, that's so poorly designed, that's okay because the game doesn't handhold and because I like a challenge. No, you don't like a challenge. Because if you liked a challenge, you would understand enough about game design to see that this horseshit, this is not a challenge. It's not challenging to get screwed because you don't know any better.